there is a heavy irony in administration officials talking about security when this administration and the previous Trump administration were on several occasions quite lax with intelligence and have been somewhat sloppy in terms of their security.
The paper reports today that the Trump administration has warned Keir Starmer that the failure to prosecute two Brits accused of spying for China could threaten intelligence sharing between the UK and the US. The case against Chris Cash and Christopher Berry collapsed last month after the government failed to provide evidence that China was a threat to national security. And both Chris Cash and Christopher Berry deny all accusations. We're now joined by Director of Military Sciences at RUSI, Matthew Savill. Matthew, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon.
How damning is this intervention by the US administration, Matthew?
Well, it's an anonymous quote from an unidentified official, so it's always a bit difficult to know. But it will certainly be uncomfortable for the government, given the difficulty they are having in putting this story to bed, or indeed even explaining what has happened here. And it obviously comes in the context of a number of other frictions with the US administration. So I don't know how alarmed I would be without more context on it, but it certainly adds pressure to the way things are at the moment.
I mean, this official has been quoted as saying that the US government exercises extreme caution in sharing information with foreign governments subject to adversarial coercion and influence. I mean, it was not that long ago that the Secretary of State for Defense was in a signal group where they accidentally included a journalist and shared plans about military operations in Yemen. Does the US really have the credibility in this instance to stand up and say to the UK, we don't trust the way you share information?
There's certainly a question about the interests on China, but at the same time, yes, there is a heavy irony in administration officials talking about security when this administration and the previous Trump administration were on several occasions quite lax with intelligence and have been somewhat sloppy in terms of their security. The other thing that's happening at the moment in the US is what seems to be a struggle within the US national security and intelligence system, which is, if you like, something of a political struggle over accusations of politicization of intelligence, which this administration is making towards the previous administrations, particularly the Biden one, but at the same time looks on the face of it as retaliation or cracking down on people who might be delivering uncomfortable truths to power. And so there is a question about how other countries deal with the US intelligence and security system at the moment, given it is still enormously important for a number of other international partners.
At the heart of this, and reading the extremely detailed piece in today's Sunday Times, Matthew, is this new Chinese embassy due to be built at the site of the Royal Mint. That is still in the process of being approved. There are a lot of insinuations that part of what we're seeing has to do with the government being able to wave through this building. There's a super embassy. What are your thoughts on this? How big a role is this embassy playing in what we're seeing?
The embassy appears to be emblematic of the broader challenge, which I think has been accurately described in this reporting, which is that China poses some threats to the UK. It views the international system differently. It views geopolitics differently. And like many countries, including the UK, it conducts espionage aimed at other countries in order to gather information to inform its diplomacy. But China is also an enormous opportunity. It has phenomenal economic weight, considerable business is already done with China, and actually politically, we want to work with China on lots of issues of overlapping or mutual interest. So China doesn't fit into the camp that, say, Russia does as a kind of international hooligan more interested in breaking things. So the government does have to balance all of these competing interests. The problem is that this story is tremendously unclear as to whether or not it has actually compromised security or indeed de facto interfered in a judicial process to protect political and economic interests.
Perhaps you can shed some light, Matthew, on something that was mentioned in the paper yesterday as well, that this is a breaking of the Official Secrets Act. The idea that you are collecting and passing information to someone who shouldn't have access to that information, anyone, is a breaking of the rules, if I understand it correctly. Why is it so important that China wasn't ascribed as a threat to the UK? Isn't just the mere fact that you passed on information under the Official Secrets Act that shouldn't be passed to anybody enough to see both those individuals be brought to court?
This is the bit of the story that is quite confusing and I suspect quite legalistic, which is that the fact that people misused information that they had obtained should have been, quite compelling evidence, rather than dancing on the head of the pin over this discussion over is China an enemy or not. What is certainly the case is that if this happened now, the National Security Act has a lower threshold and would more easily enable a prosecution. But there is plenty of evidence out there about threats from China, even if you choose not to describe China as an enemy. So there's still, I think, some digging to be done on the exact rationale and decision making here, and whether there is a degree of buck passing going on. Has there been soft pressure applied? Have some people backed off in the face of finding it difficult to make a compelling case? Is there an issue, in fact, over the use of intelligence in court, which has always been a very fraught process because the intelligence community itself has often been concerned about compromising sources or methods by bringing things to trial, and has therefore been in favor of finding other forms of evidence. So I'm a little bit confused over the exact argument that is taking place because the story has changed several times.
Matthew, thank you for giving us your time. Indeed, I feel there's more to come in this story. That was Matthew Savill, Director of Military Sciences at RUSI.